Featured in Men's Health, Ebony Magazine, and KC Star, he is breaking ground and really making a difference in the lives of everyone he meets. He's a writer, adaptive athlete, motivational speaker, trainer, business owner, and more, and he still manages to be a full-time dad. I am so glad I got a chance to sit with the influential and ever-smiling Mr. Wesley Hamilton. Okay, now be careful. Don't be doing all that into the mic and stuff, okay?
I got it.
All right, so I am with the wonderful Wesley Hamilton. Now, Wesley, I always like to get people's background history. Were you born and raised here? I forgot. I guess it's like we're friends, but I don't know a whole lot about you.
Oh, man, well, you're just going to get to know everything about me today then, right?
Right. So were you born and raised in Kansas City?
I was. I was born and raised on the east side of Kansas City.
On the east side of Kansas City. So tell us a little bit about your childhood or growing up here.
Oh, man.
What's little Wesley like?
Little Wesley was bad.
Oh,
I was bad. I was a hardhead. And I think it was more about just my environment that I was in. I'm a firm believer in you can become a product of your environment. And I had became such a product of that environment because I never seen what opportunity or success looked like. Okay. Especially like leaving out of the house, going out, you walk out the front door, you don't see success.
Right.
You're like, man, this is struggle. Like, yeah. I'm struggling and I'm just going to have to struggle.
Yeah.
And, so I grew up that way. I grew up thinking that, my opportunities was limited.
Did you have a close relationship with your parents?
Man, grew up in a single parent home with my mom, so I watched her work a couple jobs, really grinding for her kids. I have two other siblings with my mom. My dad, he was around, but he wasn't, like a lot of fathers. And so he kind of jumped in when I was about 13, though.
Okay. Now, growing up, did you have a future in mind of what you thought you would have been like? Did you have some aspirations as a child?
Nah, yeah. My role models.
Who were your role models? Who were your role models?
My role models was people in the street because that were the only successful people that we saw. Okay. And so my dreams and goals were just trying to be somebody that was above level in the street game. Okay. Like that was me, know, and so the choices that I made as a young teen all the way up to maybe my early 20s was like, man, I want to be the next, what was one of the, like Tony Montana in a way.
Kansas City, Tony Montana.
Hey, seriously, it was.
But that's real though.
It was that, and that was because of the surroundings.
Right. Wow. So, and then you became a father, right?
Right.
What year did you become a father?
I was 22 years old.
22 years old, and you became a father of a little girl. How did that change your life?
Oh, man, it changed it tremendously. Like, at that point, I was like, all right, no more street talk, no more, like, thinking that I could just grind and do all this. Instead, it was, go get you a full-time job. I was always independent. So I always had my own apartment or something like that, so that wasn't an issue. But it was like, go get a full-time job and be a responsible parent. And that's what I did. I went and got a full-time job, and I started to raise this little girl.
For many of you that may not know, he's a full-time dad as well, right?
All day.
All day, every day. Ooh, that's that life. And you don't hear that a lot either. But some things happen in your life that definitely weren't planned. So tell us a little bit about this big incident that happened in your life.
All right, so when I was 24, matter of fact, like, it was 5 days after I turned 24.
5 days.
I was shot multiple times, which I suffered a spinal cord injury, and it left me paralyzed from the waist down for the rest of my life.
Wow. Okay, well, you just said it like so fast. So you're 24. You have this 4-year-old girl. You just turned 24, and describe that day.
Oh man, it was nice. It was sunny. It was beautiful. It was a
It
great
really
day.
was, right? Because you sounded sarcastic right now.
No,
I've heard the story before.
it was an amazing day
amazing
outside.
day.
I was really trying to go kick it for my birthday. Like,
Really had
so
plans to kick it.
I had a shot of Hennessy with my mom's that morning.
Okay.
Like, I'm like, all
That
right,
Henny
we about to go out. My best friend's birthday is actually the same day as mine as well. So I had ran to a grocery store, and so I still had groceries in my trunk when I got shot. Like, I had just left the grocery store and thought about going to go visit a friend.
Yeah.
And went over there, and from a normal like quick visit turned into like an altercation that just wasn't necessary, and It wasn't verbal. Like it was like, it wasn't like a stare down. It wasn't anything. It was the craziest thing in life. Is I went to go see a lady friend, and she had company, but me and her was talking about something serious, and so we was outside talking and everything, and her company kept looking out the window. So as a man, I was like, all right, come on down, let's talk. He never came down.
Okay.
He actually ended up calling a friend of his. I could never play it out and say what the conversation was, but regardless of what, he called a friend of his just to come by. So when his friend came, we was in an apartment complex too, so you didn't really recognize like a stranger pulling up at all. So when his friend came, he came outside. I tried to tell him like, all right, man, I just want to let you know there's no problems. I never knew it was somebody out there waiting on him. He was like, all right, yeah, whatever. He said his little couple words, and I shrugged it off and started walking back to my car, and I was shot. Like, it was just like that.
Like after the conversation, you're walking back to your car, and then that's when it happened.
Yeah, so when I turned around, because, you don't feel pain, you just feel something happen.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, what just happened? So I got shot once right here, and I turned around, I'm looking at somebody I never seen, never had a stare down, never talked to. Like, who is this dude? It's like, I see the gun, and he shoots me again. Like, as I'm looking at him directly, he shoots me again.
Wow.
And that's when my legs went out. Like, I didn't know I was paralyzed, but I knew something had happened.
Yeah. Wow. What was going through your head at that time?
Honestly, the only thing that was going through my head is, regret. It was a lot of regret. It wasn't about the life that I lived, because I'd never regret the way I was brought up. It was more or less like I had just got temporary sole custody of my daughter, and the only thing I was thinking was, man, I had the opportunity to raise a little girl, and now you're gonna take it away from me.
Wow.
Like, that's it. Like,
wow.
Man, what is my daughter gonna think if I'm here trying to give her a better life, and now you just took me away from it?
In a matter of seconds, in broad daylight.
All
right, so of course it's a very traumatic experience, and it takes, like you said, you knew your body was affected, but describe the process of going, in the hospital, going through the healing, but also mentally as well. Like, how was that process of the next, however long it takes to heal from shots?
It took me about 3 years, of depression and like dwelling on the situation. A lot of why me's, a lot of questioning, a lot of denial. The first year was full of denial. Like, I imagine, man, you always see a story of a guy that was paralyzed and he went back to walking, right? It's like so amazing. Like, so I thought I was gonna be that guy.
Yeah.
And so I never really accepted my situation.
Okay.
So it really put me through a lot. And it was, when I tell you, I didn't accept the therapy. I didn't listen to him. I just didn't do anything. And it led to me having a pressure ulcer on my tailbone, which is like this enlarged sore that just, as it gets worse, you can actually, as bad as it was on me, you can see the bone.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was terrible. So I was in a put on bed rest for 2 years. And that's when I really was like, man, something got to change.
Yeah. So you say about a total of 3 years you were in and out the hospital, going through depression. So you said the sore that you had on your tailbone, was that maybe one of your low points? Because you're very open about this struggling with depression, but what was, describe a low point?
No, I mean, just the whole process, being in denial, it was low. It was completely a low point in my life because, for one, I couldn't accept me in this new life. Like, my whole life, I always looked at a person with a disability as something was wrong with them.
Yeah.
And it was only because that's what was instilled into my mind as I was growing up. You always had special education classes.
Yeah.
You know, everyone with a different disability, whether it was physical or mental, was separated. So when I got into society, I always looked at someone like they're different. They always needed help. So in my mind, I was like, man, I'm going to need help now. Like, people are going to have to do this, help me, babe. Like, it was just like I became a dependent.
Yeah.
So I hated myself. Like, I hated everything I had became. Like, I wanted to die. I used to always reenact the situation. Like, man, why I didn't die that day? Like, why it didn't, you know? It was hard because I could never think like, how could I be a father?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it was just like, how can I be a father to this little girl? Like, it's no way that that's happening.
So you're describing all of these things that I'm sure a lot of people would feel or understand, like, because that was part of your identity, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, did you ever forgive the person? Or,
oh, man.
Because I know you were mad. You said you were mad at yourself. Were you mad at God or the world?
I really wasn't. I didn't understand the position I was put in until, you know, I started to change who I was. I started to change, like, my body. So
wait, before we get into that though, I want you to really touch about this forgiveness piece.
Well, that's the point. Like, I couldn't, of course I forgave the guy, like the guy that put me in this position. Everybody that did is because in my mind it was like, you gave me life when you was trying to take my life. There's no way that I could be upset with that. Like, the way I live my life today, I'm living.
But at the
time it was hate.
Process, it was still the same.
I mean, it was hate because I had never thought about how I felt about what the person did to me. Okay. Instead, I hated myself more than I hated them.
Wow.
You know, like, I just like, man, how did I put myself in this situation? I'm not a person to put blame on anybody. I always think about, like, man, if you always blaming somebody else, then you're never successful, like, in anything you do.
Right.
Because you're always pointing the finger at the wrong person and you're not pointing it at you. And I'm just like, man, I made dumb choices, dumb decisions to get me there. But at the same time, like, I hated me. I didn't hate them. I was, like, more worried about Wesley. And it was just like, dude, how could you be like that?
Yeah.
You know,
So during this process as well, who was your support system, you would say? Because you were a father at the time, and you talked about, you know, your family that you grew up with. Were they there throughout the process? Did you have anybody there for you?
It was two people that I can always just go back to. It was a good friend of mine, my daughter's godmom, and my mom, and they was always there. They were always there. They were the ones that I would probably cuss out and you know, show my anger to, and they would just hold me and say, like, all right, you still cool. You know,
and you
but
need that,
all my friends, all my other family, they disappeared. They wasn't around. It took me to be in a position I'm in today to understand that even though I was dealing with something that I could physically see, they was dealing with it mental because they had grew up with someone, and I did this drastic change. How can they cope and look at me and I'm depressed and negative? Like, didn't nobody want to be around that energy because I wasn't the same Wesley. But sometimes you got to be alone to find yourself.
You got to be alone. Let's take a sip on that. Sometimes you got to be alone to find yourself. Whew, because I know even for myself, sometimes you do try to find yourself in things and people, but I like how you said sometimes you have to be alone to find who you really are. And again, you better than me because I would be holding some type of resentment, especially when it's the worst of the worst that happens to me. When you go through things and there's people and the people that were there for you before disappear, like I would have something to say.
Well, you got to think about it like this, and this is how I looked at it. When you have a plan, your plan in life might not be what you expect. And for me to be at my lowest, and it took me to find myself and understand why this happened to me, I couldn't be upset about it. Like, I couldn't be resentful to anybody. Like, the way I live my life and the way that I embrace my physical limitations, it's hard for so many people to do that. And that's why I struggled so much at the beginning. But the difference is I realized that this was supposed to happen.
Yeah, let's talk about that turning point. That turning point when you realize, wait a minute, it's more to life than this. This is for a reason. It's for a purpose. Talk about that turning point. How did you get from Wesley being depressed, being mad at yourself? How did I get in this situation? Woe is me. To what? You know, it's new year, new me. You know what I mean? How did you get to that person?
All right. It's really like so simple. It was like a drastic change, but it was a change that got me to change. And the last year I was on bed rest, I reached out to the doctor and I asked him, like, man, how can I heal? Like, how can I heal this sore? I have to be a father. I cannot just at that point I was only able to leave the house and out the bed 3 hours a day. I was on bed rest for 21 hours.
Wow.
And I was defeated, and I was tired of being defeated. And the doctor said, man, just add more protein to your diet. And at that point, I didn't know nothing about nutrition. I didn't know anything. Like, I wasn't in the fitness field. I never did sports. So protein shakes, things like that, it was just like I heard about it, but I didn't know about it.
It was kind of foreign to you.
It was very foreign. And man, I did the unthinkable, and I ended up going to school to be a dietitian. And it was
from that advice from the doctor?
Yeah, because I'm like, nobody else. I mean, I looked on Google and I seen things,
Dr.
but
Google.
I had to teach myself. I had always taught myself my own ways in life through the streets. Like, that's how I learned how to be a man. And I felt that, you know, if I wanted to make this change for myself, I gotta learn it. I gotta learn about it. And it took me to open up a book on nutrition to see how bad the food I was eating was.
Yeah.
Changed my diet, changed everything. I lost 100 pounds in less than a year. And so by the time I had my last surgery, 3 years later, in January, so I was shot January 14th, 2012. And my last surgery was January 2015. Wow. Right? So like 3 years, literally. Yeah. I was 100 pounds lighter with a whole different mindset. And what I mean by that is, if I could lose weight paralyzed because I wanted it that bad, then there is nothing in life that I cannot do. Wow. And that was the only change. Once I changed my body and knew that, man, this is something people struggle with. Yeah. But because I could change this, and all I had to do was want it that bad, oh man, then what else do I want?
Simple that too.
Like, what else do I want?
What else do I want? I can have it. Because you're talking about a physical change, but also it started in your mind first. It's discipline in your mind. So,
I always tell people that my physical strength is nothing compared to my mental strength.
How important is it to be mentally strong?
I mean, being mentally strong gives you the ability of knowing that every morning you wake up facing adversity by not having the use of your legs, and instead of letting that defeat you, you allow it to empower you every time you wake up in the morning. I mean, that's how strong mental strength is and why it's necessary, because I'm not defeated by the physical limitations I have anymore. Instead, this is what powers me to get out and do everything I do every day.
Yeah. Okay, so now, of course, if you are from Kansas City, you know this man. He be rolling around. He is an adaptive athlete trainer, a business owner, full-time father, motivational speaker. He do it all, okay? We know he's always smiling. But you have your own business I want to talk about for a minute. Disabled, but not really. It's a nonprofit organization. And you guys kind of have, I know you focus on fitness. I know you focus on nutrition. And then you do motivational speaking and also bring awareness to disability and what that means. And you go everywhere. People fly him out of town to speak. Y'all, this is our treasure here. But for real, how did disabled but not really start? Because it's one thing to kind of do your own work on yourself and live your best life. But what made you decide to share that with the world?
Disabled but not really started as I was recovering from my last surgery. I actually came up with disabled not really in a hospital bed. I had 6 weeks left of recovery, and only thing I could think is, man, if I was able to change my life, how can I bring value to someone else's? That was it. Because remember, the only reason why I sunk into depression is because everyone I ever seen was depressed. So now that I was able to feel great about my situation, there's no way I could be selfish enough not to give it to somebody else.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's when I created Disabled Not Really. And it was just that. It was the passion to be able to provide what I learned to someone else.
Yeah. And how long have you guys been in business now?
Started in 2015.
The same? That was the year of birth for you, 2015.
I always tell people I was reborn. And now you're still here teaching people, inspiring people every day, even youth, about disability and bringing that awareness. Oh man, but it's so much more than that.
Okay,
like,
go ahead.
You know, when we think about mentality and we think about people with disability, like, it is a mindset. But I was paralyzed mentally before I was ever paralyzed physically. And
wait, let it breathe. Let the wind blow, let it breathe. Because there are people who are disabled mentally.
And the reason why is because, just like I said at the beginning of the conversation, I limited myself to the opportunities that I had because of the surroundings that I seen. Period. And when you limit yourself to your opportunities, you're disabled mentally.
Wow.
Because now I'm mentally free, and I think that any opportunity I want to go for, I can get. And I'm still in the same neighborhoods. I'm still going around the same surroundings. So my purpose in life isn't just about people with disabilities or raising that awareness. It's actually showing the youth from the communities that I grew up in that opportunities come to those that create it, not to those that get it handed to them.
Wow, not to those that get it handed to them.
Yeah, because if you wait on somebody to hand you something, you're going to be waiting the rest of your life.
The rest of your life.
Nothing comes easy, and if it does come too easy, then you shouldn't take it.
Right. So, and I think sometimes, of course, it's easier because I work with kids as well to kind of impress on little kids sometimes because they're still growing mentally. How hard is it to actually try to change people who are already grown, already set in their ways, and they already got this? They think they got it already figured out.
It's really just through experience. Like, for me, it's great when people that knew Wesley before they seen this Wesley, it's like, oh man, you can change, right? Like, I know who you used to be, and I see who you are now, and you're not faking it, right? But for the ones that I don't know personally and don't know me, it's only good to show them who I used to be so that they can say, okay, I'm that guy now, but I can be this guy later. I can start tomorrow. So to me, it's always just reflecting. And then you see this guy, like, I'm happy. Like, I never smiled till I was paralyzed. Ever. Like, any picture that you ever see, I flipped off the camera. I hated the world.
Oh, wow.
I hated the world because I thought the world hated me. And instead, it was like, no, I had so much self-hate for myself that now I have self-love, which is empowering me every day. So there's no reason for me to be mad. Like, I'm never mad. And when people say, like, dude, you gotta have a bad day, I'm like, for what? Like,
you see every negative as a positive.
Exactly. Right? And that's the best part of my life.
So now you have this new, like, outlook on life and this new perspective on life. And it's infectious. Like, everybody can see it. Everybody can feel it when they're around you. Define success now. Define success.
Oh, man, that's so simple.
Okay, go ahead.
Success to me is being happy. Like, because I'm happy with everything I do, there's no monetary value that can make me any more happy than what I am right now. Like, I don't have to have, like, the finest car or the nicest clothes. Like, instead, because I'm happy within myself, I've already reached the level of success. Like, that's it. Like, success is being happy. Success is living your life in a positive mindset. it's so many people that we look at as successful, and they hate their life,
Right.
because they're always wanting more.
Yeah.
You want more and more because you're not happy with who you are and yourself. So I think once you figure out how to be happy with who you are and yourself, like, you've succeeded. Because after that, everything comes to you in a different way.
Right.
Like, it's like blessings on top of blessings,
Right.
because you're happy.
Are you proud of yourself?
Oh man, I'm overly, like, the fact that I can be my daughter's hero, and she's not looking at someone else as her Superman or her Thor or Iron Man, like any of that. Like, instead it's like my daddy.
Yeah.
Like, that was, to me, that's why I'm proud. Like, because I can be a proud father and know that I've created something that's going to be a leader before her time.
Wow. When was the last time you cried?
I don't know.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, all right, so I do a lot of meditating. I do a lot of, like, listening to podcasts and books, and I'm listening to this book called Principles by Ray Dalio. I think it's, or Dalio. Either way, it's Ray. Ray. And I listen to it over and over again because it teaches you life principles and work principles. And one of the things he says in there, and I take this a lot, is that, you know, when you start to look at life differently, it's hard for you to be sad about things because you see them as how they're supposed to happen. And it's hard for me to be sad about anything that's going to put me in a position to, like, cry, because, like, life works in mysterious ways. And sometimes, even if you got a loss in the family, like, you celebrate, you know, because you know that person is in a better place. And so I think with my mindset of just knowing, like, man, like, it's life. Like, it's life. You know, I've been through a lot. And I've still, to this day, I can say, dude, like, everything you went through is life. Like, we go through hard times, but we go through them to empower us. There's no reason for me to be sad about it.
Right.
Sadness didn't do nothing but put me through more and more depression.
Right. You do daily vlogs. He has his 5:30 a.m. wake-up calls with other entrepreneurs and leaders. But listen, I just really want to thank you. It took a long time for us to get together, but I really, really, really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with me, to inspire others. What you're doing is definitely not in vain, and you definitely inspire me. And I just appreciate you, man. I appreciate our friendship. But just continue. Thank you for not being ashamed to share your story and to inspire other people to follow their dreams and passion no matter what the circumstances.
Oh, man.
So,
I appreciate it.
Thank you. We need more people like you, man.
Hey, well, mine gone.
Step it up.
You
I still got
you
some.
Right. Full cup over
Right.
here. Like, come on now.
Listen.
Cup half full, like, over here.
Well, listen, guys, thank you again. That was another edition of Coffee Talk with Wendy Elle. Remember to be bold, be beautiful, and be blessed. Until next time. Thank you.
All right, cool.
This is our first time doing one outside. I feel official. I don't have my Wendy Elle cups, but, you know, it's hot out here. Okay, guys? So we're drinking cold coffee today.
I love cold coffee. It's life.
Yeah, that's fine. Of course they're going to leave it here, but this ain't you, though.
Because it's not about me.
Oh, you always got the right thing to say. You always got the right comeback.
Like,
That's true, though.
I'm my black lady.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So,
that's so dope.
yeah.
That's so dope. What's your favorite place?
Really, I like local.